Good morning, children. Let us begin with Standard 5 EVS Unit 7 Experiments with Water Part 1. What floats, what sinks? Floats means something which remains on the upper level of the water, and sinks means the things which are heavy, it goes right down below the water. So that is floats and sinks. Aisha was waiting for dinner. Today, Ammi was making her favorite food, puri and spicy potatoes. Aisha watched as her mother rolled out the puri and put it in the hot oil. She saw that at first the puri sank to the bottom of the pan. As it puffed up, the puri came up and started floating on the oil. One puri did not puff up and did not float like the others. On seeing this, Aisha took some dough and rolled it into a ball. She flattened it and put it in the bowl of water. Alas, it sank at the bottom and stayed there. So this chapter is going to teach us about what things float and what things sink. What makes things float and what makes things sink? As normally as we know that anything which is lighter than the liquid, those things will float. And the things which are heavier than the liquid, then they will sink. So this is a short story about Aisha. She experiences about this floating and sinking in her normal life. She says that she was waiting for dinner and her mother was making her favorite food, that was puris and spicy potatoes. Now she was watching her mother rolling puris, making puris for her. So for making puris, her mother was rolling the dough into small puris and she was putting them into the oil to fry. So Aisha noticed that as soon as her mother put the puri, that puri, it sank into the oil. It went into the bottom of the pan. But as it got fried, it puffed and it came above the oil. So she was a little surprised that first the puri was at the bottom of the oil and now it is floating. So even she tried to do this. She took a small part of a dough and she rolled it into a ball. She flattened it and then she went and she put that into a bowl of water. But to her surprise and sadly, what did she see? She saw that that ball of dough, it remained below in the water. It did not come up again. So now we need to think what would have happened if Aisha put a puffed puri in a bowl of water. Would it sink or float? So it would float. Why? Because it is puffed and it is quite light. So it would float on water. You put a steel plate on water. Would it sink or float? What would happen to a spoon? Now a steel plate, it is little heavier, so it will sink in water, even a steel spoon. Now would the cap of a plastic bottle sink or float on water? Now that plastic cap, it is a little lighter, so it won't sink in water, it will float on water. So things which are lighter, as I said, they will float on water, and the heavier things, they will sink in the water. In the evening, Aisha went for a bath. She had just come out when her mother called, Aisha, you have dropped the soap in the water again. Take it out and put it in the soap case. Aisha was in a hurry and the soap case fell. Now, in the evening, what happened? She had gone for a bath. Who she? Aisha. Now, when she finished a bath, she heard her mother calling to her and telling her that she had dropped the soap in the bucket of water. So again Aisha ran in to remove that soap and she told her to put it into the soap case. So Aisha was quite in a hurry. So she took the soap and the soap case. And what did she do? Let us read. Aisha was in a hurry and the soap case fell out of her hand. It started floating on water. Aisha gently put the soap in the soap case. She saw that the case continued to float, even with the soap in it. Have you seen that something float on water while others sink? Think how this happens. Now, what happened? Now, she was in a hurry when her mother told her that the soap, she had left the soap in the water. So, she ran and she took the soap dish and she placed the soap on the soap case. Now when she went, she saw that the soap case was floating on water. Why was the soap case floating on water? Because the soap case has a hole under it so that the water from the soap drips off and it does not remain wet. So that is why that soap case was floating on water. Now when she put the soap in that case, still the soap case did not sink in the water. Now she started thinking that why this happens, and here is one short poem that shows us what float and what sink. So let us read this poem. Why, oh why, a wooden boat in water will float, but a needle will sink. Why does this happen? Let me think. An iron ship will also float, though it's much heavier than my boat. But a needle, light as a leaf, thin as a pin, will sink right in. Why does this happen? Let me think. So this poem is trying to say that though a wooden boat, we've seen that boats, they float on water, they don't sink. Even a huge ship that we have seen in the oceans and seas, they don't sink, they are floating, they move on water. Why so? They are heavy, but the air, which is the shape of the boat, and there is air filled in it, so that the water, it pushes that boat again above the water, so it does not sink and they float. This is because of the force of the water and the boat. It does not allow the boat to sink. It does not allow these heavy ships and boats to sink in water, because the density of the ship, the boat, is lesser than that of the water. That is why these boats and ships, they don't sink in the ocean or seas. It is magic. When Aisha woke up in the morning, Ammi had fever. Abu made some tea and went to give medicines to Ammi. He told Aisha, "You boil eggs. Also put some salt in the water." Aisha took water in a pot. By mistake, she put too much salt in the water. She saw the eggs at the bottom of the pot come up a little and start to float in water. Now, this again happened, and Aisha was surprised that what happened. Now, one day in the morning, the next day, when she woke up, she found that her mother had fever, and her father had made a cup of tea for her mother and told Aisha to boil eggs. Now, she took water and she put those eggs in the water. So the eggs were heavier, so they sank in the water. But her father had also told her to put a little salt in the water. But by mistake, what happened? Aisha put too much of salt in the water. And what did she observe? That after the salt dissolved in the water, she saw that the eggs, they started floating in water. So now, even you try this. What is it? Take some water in a glass, put a lemon in it. So what will happen? The lemon will sink in the water. Now keep putting salt in the water, half a spoon at a time. Were you able to float your lemon in water. So what will you see? You will see that you put a lemon in a glass full of water, it will sink. But as you keep on adding a salt, a half a spoon of salt in that same glass of water, you will find that slowly your lemon will come up. Why so? Because the salty water becomes heavier, and your lemon, it becomes much more lighter. So your lemon, which is sinking down, it comes up, it starts floating. You can see this picture. So as the experiment says, that put a lemon in a glass full of water. So what will you see? That the lemon will slowly go, and it will sink in that glass of water. Now here you can see in the picture towards your right, the lemon is sinking and it has sat down in the glass of water. But in the picture towards your left, you can see it is a little milky, a translucent liquid. Why is it like that? Because we've added a lot of salt in it. So when we added a lot of salt in it, the water has become a little heavier, and the lemon is become lighter than that volume of that density of the water. So the lemon, it comes up and it starts floating on top of the water. Dead Sea. All oceans and seas have salty water. The saltest of all is the Dead Sea. How salty? Imagine 300 grams of salt in 1 liter of water. Would you be able to even taste such salty water? It would be very bitter. Interestingly, even if a person does not know how to swim, she would not drown in this sea. She will float in water as if lying down on it. Remember, the lemon, you floated in salty water. Now here's one example that they're giving about the Dead Sea, which is in Asia. Now we all know that ocean water, sea water is very salty. It is salty. When we taste, we find there is salt. Okay, but the saltiest and the most saltiest of all the seas is the Dead Sea. This sea is so salty, they say that if you put 300 grams of salt in 1 liter of water, you can taste it. It will become so salty that you will just spit it out of your mouth. You will find this water also little bitter. Now, as you put more salt in the water, it becomes heavier. And now because of this Dead Sea is so salty that if you swim in this water and you don't know how to swim also, you will never drown in this water. This water will always keep you floating on the upper surface, and you will never drown in the water. You will be feeling that as if you are just lying on your bed. It is like that. It is so salty. The density of this salty water is so high that it allows everything, even the heaviest, a person to float on it. Now you can just see this picture of the Dead Sea. So here children, you can see this is a picture of Dead Sea. You can see on the seashore everything white. This is all the salt. We've all seen normal seas and oceans, and we have been to many beaches, but we have never seen anywhere, even these seas and oceans are salty, but we have never seen anywhere such white portion on the banks. But this Dead Sea, it is so salty that the water which settles on the beach, that also becomes so white, and it is all salty. So it can be clearly seen in this picture. This is the picture of the Dead Sea. Now here you can see that a man is floating on the surface of the water. Though if you know swimming, you don't know swimming, but here in this sea you will never drown. You will keep floating And you can see that how it seems that as if he is sleeping on his bed and he is floating on that water. So dear children, I hope you have understood this part. Now the remaining part of the lesson we will discuss in part 2. So thank you and have a nice day.